It's no secret that here in the state of Minnesota, we're dealing with another budget deficit. This year, it's $1.1 billion. And of course, there's been a budget proposed to tackle this budget. But I thought something was very interesting that occurred recently here in the Minnesota legislature having to deal with this budget. And in fact, if this hadn't been done, almost 1/4 of the budget deficit we're talking about, we wouldn't have to deal with. And I'm talking about rubber stamping increases for employee unions in the state of Minnesota. Now, it is true, employee unions have not had a raise for 3.5 years here in the state of Minnesota. But the state of Minnesota, for that time plus, has been operating with a budget deficit, delaying payments to schools and to other obligations. In other words, there hasn't been money in the state in order to give pay increases. Now, there was a committee hearing. It was the House Labor, Workplace, and Regulatory Industries Committee. They looked at Bill House File 95, and in a 6-3 vote, with little to no debate, approved 5 union employee contracts here in the state of Minnesota, including for the Ask Me Union, for the MAPS Union, for the State Residential School Educators Association, for the Middle Management Association, and for the Janitorial Union Association. Universally, with all these different unions, they were given a 2% pay raise across the board, a cost of living increase, as well as their steps and lanes increases. For the taxpayer of Minnesota, this is going to cost an extra $250 million. In other words, 1/4 of the $1.1 billion budget deficit. It's no secret that our pension plans with our unions is one of the big factors that is sinking not only Minnesota's state budget, but state budgets from across the country. Even our own United States Postal Service, locally here in Detroit Lakes, had to lay off, or not lay off, I should say, gave early retirement to 4 employees in order to deal with the budget restraints. And when I've talked to people in the U.S. Postal Service, the number one issue with them is their pension program. Now, of course, their number one ultimate issue is the fact that a lot less people are mailing stuff out. But what's hindering them is their inability to change the deals with their pensions and with those programs. I'm not saying that employees should not be compensated. One of the things the GOP wanted to do when it came to these employee contracts was to require 5% more of employees to pay for their health benefits. It would have saved millions of dollars for the state of Minnesota. Now, some supporters of the union come back and say, hey, with the new health care in this union contract, we'll save $7.9 million. It's pretty tough to convince me that saving $7.9 million on one end of the contracts and costing taxpayers $250 million on the other end is a plus for the taxpayers in Minnesota. And that's the problem. This got rubber stamped through a committee, pushed through with little to no debate, with little to no reasoning for the taxpayers in Minnesota taken into consideration. Granted, these are state, county workers, these are your police officers, these are your public official workers. But I'll argue that they're compensated pretty well right now. They're not rich. No, they're not. But they make more than the average Minnesotan does. And when you're making more than the average and you're on that upper half, I think it's pretty big kahunas to sit there and ask for more money, especially when you know your state's in a $1.1 billion budget deficit. Now, I know I mentioned 3.5 years since the last time these municipal employees have had a raise. I get that. But you got to remember, just 2 years ago, this state was in a $6.2 billion budget deficit. 2 years later, we're facing only a $1 billion budget deficit. These raises were denied over the last 2 years in order to get that budget deficit reduction. So somewhere along the lines, we were getting things done here in Minnesota. But with the new budget proposal, I'm seeing lots of increases in spending just like this. And somebody's got to pay that somewhere along the line, and you know it's going to be you and me.